Hello, everyone. This is Sebastian McMahon from IA Financial Group, and here's another Economy and Finance 101 video, this time covering the stock market. So a few videos ago, we covered stocks. So what is a stock exactly? So looking at a very specific asset, but now let's look at the stock market. But let's start with maybe a few definitions, because these are definitions or words that are used sometimes as synonyms, but they're not really the same thing at all. So stock market, stock exchange, and a stock index. So the stock market generally refers to the collection of exchanges and other venues where the buying, selling, and issuing of shares of publicly traded companies takes place. So it's the sum total of all of the stocks, so the equities that are listed on stock exchanges around the world. So this is the stock market. The stock exchange refers to the exchange platform where trades are executed. So you can still go to the Toronto Stock Exchange on the floor. You can go to the New York Stock Exchange on the floor. But of course, now most trading is done electronically. So we're talking about software platforms mostly now. Stock indices make it possible to monitor the performance of a basket of stock securities. So it's really a pooling of securities together, of stocks classified according to certain criteria, such as geography. So the S&P 500 US listed companies, S&P TSX Canadian listed companies, sector of economic activity. So you can have an index of Canadian banks, for example, or a specific theme, for example, an index of value stocks or growth stocks. So those are all indices that you can use to track the value of funds of stocks and to build a strategy on. So how big is the stock market? So here's data from 2020 showing that the global stock market was worth close to 94 trillion US dollars, so 94,000 billion dollars. So that's a lot of money. Of course, it's smaller than the bond market, though. So the bond market is larger than that. And you won't be surprised to learn that almost 50% of the global stock market is listed in the US. After that is China. Right? You have Japan, Hong Kong, and then you have Canada. So that's in a nutshell a picture of the global stock market. When you look at stock exchanges, again, I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that the biggest stock exchanges are in the US. So the NYSE, the New York Stock Exchange, and the NASDAQ are far beyond all of their indices. I made a mistake here, stock exchanges around the world. So after that, you have Shanghai, Japan, you have Hong Kong, and you go down at some point, and you have the Toronto Stock Exchange neck and neck with the India National Stock Exchange. So those are the value of the aggregate value of the stocks that are listed on these exchanges that you see on the right. So what are the major stock indices now? So these are ways to track the value of stocks around the world. So the broadest measure that we typically use is the MSCI All Country World Index, or MSCI ACWI. This is how we call it. So it's a pooling done by the firm MSCI of large cap companies from everywhere around the world. It's not the only index that exists, but this is the one that we most typically follow. If you want to have an idea of what's the global stock market doing, you typically look at this one. This one is split into two parts. So MSCI World, which is, the name is not pretty good because it's developed countries, MSCI World, and the flip side of that is MSCI Emerging Countries. So world means developed countries here in this definition. So 75% of the MSCI All Country World Index is developed countries and 25% is emerging markets. Now, when we look at the usual suspects at which we spend most of our time looking at here as PMs at IA Financial Group, so we'll look more at the United States through the S&P 500 index, the NASDAQ index, which is more tilted towards technology, and also the Russell 2000 index, which is an index of small cap companies. If we talk about Canada, we usually talk about the S&P TSX or the TSX Small Caps Index for the smaller companies. And when we look elsewhere around the world, well, there's the MSCI EFI Index, so Europe, Asia, and Far East. So you have Asia, you have Europe, you have Japan in this index, or we can be more specific with MSCI Europe or the Nikkei 225 for the Japanese stock index. So again, this is not an exhaustive list by far. We would be spending a few days listing indices if we did that, but those are the usual indices that we work with and we have analysis on here in our work at IA. And these are the ones that you typically read about in the paper and financial news. So are all country indices the same? So of course not. So if we first look at the MSCI All Country World Index, its sector representation pretty well balanced. I mean, the more technology, well, the largest share is technology. You have financials, you have the consumer discretionary that are very important there. But if we go country by country, so all country indices, well, no, they're not the same, because as you can see in this new slide here, on the left, you have the S&P 500, which has a stronger share of technology companies compared to the S&P TSX, the Canadian index on the right, which has a bigger share of financials, energy, and materials. So depending on the macro views that we have, if we think commodities are going to be more important, they are going to be leading the market, then that explains why we might want to have more TSX, more Canadian equities than US, and vice versa. So I hope that answered your questions on what is the stock market, what's the stock index, what's the stock exchange, and stay tuned for more economy and finance 101 material.